The Banga Rice Seller's Secret, Episode 2, Part 1. The prison cell was cold and quiet. The air smelled like rusted iron and wet cement. Mama Banga Rice sat calmly on the hard bench, her head bent low, her hands cuffed. Two female officers stood outside the cell, whispering and watching her closely. One of them yawned. "I don't know why I feel cold every time I pass this woman," the taller officer said. "She gives me chills," the other replied, rubbing her arms. The night was dragging. The officers, tired and hungry, sat on a bench nearby. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the light in the hallway blinked once, then twice. Then, it went off completely. Darkness swallowed the station. "Hey! Where is the torch?" one of the officers shouted. A loud metallic clang echoed from the cell. They rushed to check. The cell door was open, empty. No sound, no footsteps, no broken lock, no broken bars. Mama Banga Rice was gone, vanished. They searched the entire building, top to bottom, toilet to rooftop. She had disappeared into thin air. By morning, the whole of Lagos had heard the news. Mama Banga Rice has escaped. Some said she dug her way out. Some said she turned into a rat. But the most frightening rumor of all came from an old man in the next compound. He said quietly, "I knew it. That woman was never human." A few days later, it started with Bella, the Sunday school teacher, a kind woman in her early 30s who had only ever wanted to serve God and help children. She was loved by all the mothers in church, and her voice carried softly every time she sang hymns. One morning, just a week after Mama Banga Rice disappeared, Bella sat on her bed, holding her stomach. She had eaten from Mama Banga's pot nearly every day. She groaned, her hands pressing hard into her abdomen. Sweat poured down her face. Her sister ran into the room. "Bella! What is it?" Bella couldn't talk. Her lips were trembling. Her skin had turned pale. They rushed her to the hospital. She died before the doctor could ask her what she ate. 2 days later, it was Chinua, a 9-year-old girl from the next street. Same symptoms, stomach pain, sweating, then silence. The hospital kept trying. They ran tests. They treated for food poisoning, malaria, typhoid, but she didn't survive. In just 1 week, 20 people, men, women, children, were dead. The only thing they all had in common: they had once eaten Mama Banga's rice. Fear spread like wildfire. Shops closed early. Street food was abandoned. People whispered in corners. But Mr. Ade, the banker, could not sleep. He had eaten Mama Banga's rice at least twice a week, sometimes more. And now, every night, he woke up at exactly 2:13 a.m., the same time Mama Banga had escaped, with cold sweat on his back. He prayed, he fasted, he anointed his house, because deep in his heart, he knew, this is not an ordinary matter. Far away from Lagos, in a quiet, dusty town in Edo State, life went on as usual. The people were cheerful, the market was always busy, and they had just welcomed a new food vendor. She was neat and cheerful, and her food, especially the Banga rice, smelled like heaven. She called herself Madam Sisi. Every day, Okada riders, students, office workers, and market women lined up at her store. Just like in Lagos, her food pot emptied before noon. People fought to get the last plate, but no one knew that Madam Sisi's hands were no ordinary hands. When she cooked at night, she didn't just use onions, pepper, and palm oil. She added something else, something dark, something red. She would squat at the back of a small kitchen behind the compound. She'd remove a clean white cloth. Then, she'd stare at the bowl beneath her. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She whispered, "They will eat and never stop, and I will never die." She would then carry the mixture, thick and red, and pour it into her pot of fresh Banga rice. At dawn, her smile returned. She wore her colorful Ankara wrapper, tied her scarf neatly, and began selling again as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Mr. Ade phone rang. It was his old friend from school, James, who now lived in Benin. "Ade, I need to see you. It's urgent," James said. Ade hesitated. He was tired and afraid, but something in James' voice forced him to agree. They met the next day at a restaurant in Lagos. James' face looked pale. "I saw something some days ago," he said slowly. "Something I can't explain." Ade leaned forward. James continued, "I saw a poster of Mama Banga Rice." Ade frowned. "What kind of poster?" James took out his phone, opened his gallery, and handed it over. The photo showed a faded obituary from 10 years ago. Mama Banga Rice. Real name, Mrs. Grace Okoji. Died 10 years ago. Died. Ade shouted. "Yes," James said quietly. "She died 10 years ago." Ade sat frozen, staring at the obituary photo. His hands trembled, and his heart raced like thunder in his chest. What are you saying, James? He whispered. You mean to tell me Mama Banga Rice is a ghost? James nodded slowly. The poster was hanging outside an old church wall. I asked around. People there remember her. They said she died after she was caught using her monthly blood to cook. She was banished, but she died mysteriously. Mr. Ade couldn't breathe properly. His mouth went dry. But I saw her. I ate her food. We arrested her. She vanished. She escaped from police custody. James leaned closer. Exactly. That's not a normal human being, Ade. Still shaking, Mr. Ade decided to investigate. He traced the old address of Mama Banga's family. The compound was nearly empty now, but one woman still lived there, Mama Chika, a retired nurse who had known Mama Banga before her death. She welcomed Mr. Ade into her sitting room and listened as he explained everything. When he finished, she closed her eyes and sighed. It's true. Her name was Grace Okoji. She was my neighbor's cousin. She died 10 years ago. She was a quiet woman, until things changed. Changed how? Mr. Ade asked, sitting forward. She stopped going to church. She started locking herself in her room. People said she was mixing charms into her food. Then one girl caught her pouring her flour into the rice pot. A whole scene happened. The compound drove her out. She went missing. Weeks later, we heard she was found sick in the bush, and she died. Ade head spun. He could barely walk straight when he left the house. He ran to Mama Banga Rice's old compound to tell the neighbors what he had discovered. A crowd gathered. Shouts and cries filled the air. Some people fainted. Others ran to the church. Fear gripped the entire street. They had all eaten the food of a spirit. And if the deaths were true, then she was still claiming lives. 1 year has passed. The memory of Mama Banga Rice began to fade in Lagos, but not for Mr. Ode. He was now the branch manager at his bank. He worked hard, prayed harder, and still lived with fear in his chest. Of all who ate from Mama Banga Rice's pot, only a few were still alive. The rest gone. One by one, they dropped. Mysterious stomach pains, sleepless nights, sudden collapses. No one could explain it, but Mr. Ode knew. Deep inside, he knew. Then one Saturday evening, as he drove back to Lagos from a business meeting in Ogun State, something happened. He stopped by a busy motor park to stretch his legs and buy water. He looked around, sipping from his bottle, and that was when he froze. Under a big red umbrella, a woman stood behind a steaming food cooler. She wore a bright ankara wrapper. Her face glowed with powder. Smile was warm. Her hands moved quickly, dishing Banga Rice onto plates. It was her, Mama Banga Rice, alive, selling, laughing. Again, Ade dropped his water. His whole body turned cold. He quickly removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. He looked again. Still there. Okada riders gathered around her. A group of hungry students were eating nearby. She served a pregnant woman with extra meat. Ade couldn't take it. He rushed across the road and shouted, Mama Banga Rice. She looked up. Their eyes met. Then, in a blink, she disappeared, vanished into thin air. Plates dropped. People screamed. Some shouted, blood of Jesus. Others ran, falling over themselves. The woman who was receiving her food screamed, where's the woman? She was just here. Another shouted, my eye dey pain me. Obi I done mad. Chaos filled the park. Ade stood in the middle of it, shaking his head. It's not real, he whispered. A man grabbed his arm. Oga, what just happened? People surrounded him. Ade took a deep breath. That woman, she's not human. She's a ghost. She's been haunting people through food. She died 10 years ago. Gasps, shouts. One boy fainted. Then Mr. Ade noticed something on the ground, right where Mama Banga Rice had stood. A broken bead bracelet. The red thread had snapped. Beads were scattered like pebbles. He bent and picked one up. An old man beside him whispered, this kind of bead, it's not ordinary. Mr. Ade nodded. We need to show it to someone, a spiritual elder, a seer, anyone. 5 men volunteered. They followed Mr. Ade to a Torah reader nearby. The reader examined the bead silently. Then he spoke. This woman, she was not born. She was sent, a spirit of death. This bracelet was her anchor. Now that it is broken, she will not return. Everyone sighed. But listen, the reader added, the people who ate her food may still be at risk. Only those with strong spirits will survive. Pray, cleanse your homes, cover your children. Mr. Ade nodded slowly. This time, he would not take anything for granted. 1 week later he returned to Lagos. He went straight to Mama Banga Rice's old compound. He gathered the neighbors and told them everything. Some wept, some shouted, some prayed. Mama Banga Rice was gone forever, but her story would never be forgotten. And so, the story of Mama Banga Rice came to a chilling end, or so we believe. She wasn't just a woman. She wasn't just a seller. She was a shadow in human form, feeding off the innocence of others. For years, her rice pot was full, but it was not food she served. It was pain. It was death. And though her beads were broken and her form vanished, some say, she still walks the earth, seeking the next hungry soul. So the next time you're tempted to eat by the roadside, look twice, listen closely, and ask yourself, who's really behind that smile? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling African folktales. And let me know in the comment, what do you think about this story? See you in the next one.